This week's portion presents us with probably the most economically challenging situation that the Torah has to offer. Just imagine that 2,500 years ago, virtually all of our ancestors were farmers, living in Eretz Yisrael. For 6 years they could work the land, but the 7th year was a sabbatical year. You have to let the land lie fallow. That's fine. You may think it's crop rotation, but it's not. Nothing. You can't grow a thing. So how in the world would they survive? Well, there's really one of two approaches. One approach was the pragmatic approach, and that is that what you could do, you could always shave off a certain amount of your produce for 6 years, and that 7th year rely upon it. But what most people did, which was the miraculous, they would just go business as usual, and that 6th year, God would give a bumper crop. He would give twice as much in that 6th year, and so that they would have what to sustain themselves with on that Shemitah year, that sabbatical year. The question is, what's the message of the Shemitah year? So I can illustrate it with a fascinating story from Chaim Volozhin. About 150, 200 years ago, there were two men that were fighting over a property. One argued that this is actually my property, and the other one said, no, it's my property, and they went to Rav Chaim Volozhiner to adjudicate the dispute. So he heard their claims, said, you know what, gentlemen, why don't we go down and actually look at the property so I can make a proper decision? So they went to the point where they were arguing, and they showed Reb Chaim where this one thought it was his property line, and that one thought it was his property line. And Reb Chaim said, you know what? I've heard your case, and I've heard your case. Let me actually listen to the land and see what it says. And they, of course, looked at him with a very perplexing look, but he leaned down and he listened to the earth. He came back, and you know what he said? He said, you're not going to imagine what the earth told me. The earth said, this one is arguing that I am his, and that one is arguing that I am his, but in reality, both of them will be mine. In other words, you think you own the earth, where are you going to end up? You're going to end up in the earth. Both of them are mine. And so too, there's a story of the saintly Chafetz Chaim. There was a man who came from Vienna to visit, and he was just shocked at the simplicity of the Chafetz Chaim's living quarters. And the Chafetz Chaim, in response, said, well, where do you live? I live in Vienna, and tell me about it. Well, I've got these oriental rugs, and I've got a beautiful dining room which can sit 20 people, and all of the fancy luxuries that he had. And the Chafetz Chaim said, well, did you bring any of it with you on your travels? The man said, no. I'm just staying at a small inn down the street, because really I'm just passing through. And the Chafetz Chaim said, exactly. On some level, all of us are just passing through. We're just passing through this world. And that perhaps is the message that we get from the Shemitah year. For 6 years, we are working the land. We are harvesting the land. We are enjoying the land. But on the 7th year, God sends us a reminder. Just remember, it's really not yours. It's really mine. So you take a step back and just keep that in mind. Make a parnasa, do well in business, absolutely. But remember, we're here on a journey. We're here as travelers. And ultimately, we can't lose sight of the fact that on that 7th year, when you're taking a break, take a step back from the earth, and we do that as well on the 7th day, which is Shabbos. We take a step back and say, you know what? The world is busy. There's a lot happening, but I can't forget that the goal of being in life is to create a special connection with God. How does that happen? Just get off your property. Take a year off. Take a day off. That's what Shabbos is about. That's what the Shemitah year is about. It's an important lesson that we learn. Economically challenging? Absolutely. But on the other hand, it's spiritually energizing. Wishing all of you a wonderful Shabbos.